Hey guys,
Hello.
welcome everyone to the episode 9 of the rundown.
Woohoo.
Yeah. Well, we're
So,
yeah. Go ahead.
oh no, okay. I was just gonna say, you want to just go right into it, or you want to do a quick
I think
introduction?
so. Tell everyone what Midas is about. Meidas Varsity Blue in the university chapter. So yes, Jonah, Liam, this is you.
Sure, I'll get started, I guess. So my name is Jonah. I founded the Midas University initiative, which is Midas Touches High School initiative, and the whole goal is to spread civic engagement toward for high schoolers and to allow them opportunities to find out what's going on in the world and how they can be engaged and active. And so the Midas Varsity Blue Rundown is just one of the things we do throughout the initiative, and where we go on the live once a week and just give a rundown of everything that happened. Yeah. Liam, do you want to share?
Oh, I was just going to say I'm very happy to be here because we've had a lot of exciting news this week, and I think we're all very much excited to hop on in and discuss what's happening.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If anyone's interested in joining Midas, feel free to let anyone know through our accounts, and we can get you situated to the organization. Do y'all just want to get right into it and talk a little bit about what's been happening this week? I think what we need to start off with, and this has been pretty predominant, it's the GOP senators blocking the January 6th commission. And I know Joe
Hmm.
wanted to kind of hop on it, talk about the filibuster a little bit. So why don't you take it away?
Sure, I would be happy to. So first of all, it shows us with the blocking of the commission, it shows us the importance of the filibuster having to be abolished. And I think with for some other information, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema sent a joint letter supporting the bipartisan commission and urging more Republicans to not filibuster. And so, kind of like the main question I got from this is first of all, will this be enough for Joe Manchin and Sinema to abolish the filibuster? And also, what do you just as a open question? What do you guys think Pelosi should do in terms of this?
Liam, you want to go? I'm going to
Well,
stay.
I definitely think one thing that is happening with this whole thing is that I really truly think that the Republicans just need to fully admit that they are trying their best to oppose it. I think it's just gotten to the point of insanity of is that it's like you can't hide behind this craziness anymore. It's just so absolutely absurd that they somehow are trying to pull the wool over everyone's eyes by using like I don't know whatever. It's like a wolf in sheep's clothing language. They're like saying no, it's not an insurrection. It was a tourist. It was a museum tour. I mean, like no, no. They were people died there. Like as I recall, the last time I went to a museum, people didn't die. So it's just these people. They're trying their best to avoid saying and admitting guilt to things that they probably most likely, especially the very heavily right leaning part of the GOP leadership, definitely is trying to hide their best, do their best to hide from the fact that they fully supported it. So I just really, really hope something happens, and I hope Pelosi says something. It's gotten to the point that that someone needs to we either Democrats need to ram it through without any Republican support, or there needs to be the the bipartisanship caucus that's there just needs to get off their butts and just say no, we can't handle it. We can't have this anymore. And I don't think Pelosi would have any sway in it. It mainly would only be for Democrats. The only way Pelosi could have any sway in it is if there was some procedural thing that they could do to make the vote happen. But I think
Which
it's squarely in the Senate's court right at the moment.
I think what she could do, just like I don't know if she will, but I think it's important to develop like a commission with Republicans and Democrats with subpoena power, and just essentially
Mm-hmm.
making them testify under oath, so we can really get answers. But yeah, no, I think it's fair, just like based on what you said, Liam, that it's fair to say that if you're a Republican, you're essentially like a traitor if you're supporting things like this. And it's crazy. I mean, it is a bipartisan issue, but we should have more Republicans need to be in support of this.
And I think as
Yeah.
Democrats, this insurrection can't be something that we compromise, or like, I guess, the severity of. It's like, if this had happened in any other country that's like that we, I guess, compete with, but like it would have been a monumental thing for them, and somehow we've managed to politicize it and politicize it so quickly. And I guess, like, police officers were hurt in that event. So for Republicans who seem to be very concerned about protecting police officers and making sure they're happy, where is that now? It's clear that there's no legitimate stance for them to use the definition of the insurrection that they're trying to do. It's just them trying to hold on to their political power any way that they can.
Oh, totally.
Absolutely.
Completely, 100,000%.
And
definitely one other thing that I keep finding that I just don't get is that, like, now Joe Manchin has a conscience. It's just like he doesn't support DC statehood. He doesn't seem to support anything. I don't it's like I find it's funny that's like this is where people draw the line, where the line's been passed like way back in 2016.
Yeah.
Not even that. No, excuse me. 2010, when the Republicans took charge of the House and Senate and blamed everything on the Democrats. Sorry, what? As I recall, we were fine. We kind of saved the economy, and we didn't try to crash it or give tax breaks to the rich. Try to overrun our country and try to install a dictator. Like what? And then they claim that every single thing that they've done is completely justifiable. Oh, because the big bad Democrats, big bad socialists, everything, they're coming up with every single excuse that they can think of that somehow equates to being, I'm morally superior in anything I do. Let me see your manager. It's like Karens are trying to take over this country, and they're now the GOP, and it's like their idea of it's like,
it's horrible. And of course, honestly, like, distracts voters and the American people from like the actual like facts and things that we need to pay attention in
they purposely evade the facts because they don't live in fact-based reality. They live an alternative reality of whatever the hell they're feeling that day, depending on what they ate. If they have a stomach ache, who knows? That's what we lived with the past 4 years was Trump. If he had a hamburger the wrong way, we'd be at nuclear war.
Look where they get their news from. It's from people who like Tucker Carlson, who just want a base, and they know that their base can be maintained if they just say lies. That's it. They're brainwashed. They're in their own reality. They deny facts, and it's crazy. But
did you know Tucker Carlson has a house in Maine? He does. I don't know where. It's some up near Northeast Maine, but I'm pretty sure on his news base, it depends. If he goes to the gas station and someone just he doesn't get, I don't know what. They could be out of soda and he would just have a complete utter panic spasm attack, and then that's his basis of the entire show is how soda is under attack in the United States. Thanks, liberals.
Literally, and talk on that note of Republicans that make absolutely no sense on the daily. Can we talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene and that?
I would love to.
That she had recently this week.
Oh, is that the lady who somehow thinks that she does the pull-ups, but instead it's just her actively falling and gravity doing active experiments every single second? Is that what you're talking about? Or is it the one that that wholeheartedly allowed every single insurrectionist to tour of the Capitol just to, do a couple of reconnaissance missions?
It's also the one that makes comparisons of masks with the Holocaust. I mean, it's absolutely pathetic, and it's gotten to a point that you're seeing more and more anti-Semitic attacks by the Republican side, and they're not saying anything about it. I mean, it's pretty clear that when you have someone on your party who says radical things like that and also talks about Jewish space lasers, that, like, maybe you should say something about that. Maybe you should stand up. And they just refuse, and they just won't speak about it. And it's absurd.
I think we have a clip of just how insane lock-up power juice space laser enthusiast Marjorie Taylor Greene is right at
Let's
the
see it.
moment? Can we pull that up?
We can look back in a time in history where people were told to wear a gold star, and they were definitely treated like second-class citizens, so much so that they were put in trains and taken to gas chambers in Nazi Germany. And this is exactly the type of abuse that Nancy Pelosi is talking about.
I'm sorry,
I mean,
I can't take that
pathetic.
seriously. Someone who thinks that that haircut is somehow not illegal, because that is so very clearly someone who prides herself on trying to be the best, but instead she's like, here, give me the worst. Really, lady who somehow thinks the hells of paradise. Oh, sorry, she rubs me the wrong way.
I think we can all agree on that part. Like the level of comfort that she maintains saying those words is what baffles me the most. It's this like it's so she's using this, she's toying with Americans with the language that she's using, and it's so blatantly obvious, and just making that comparison is so disgusting. It's so disgusting.
I've had members of my family who've died in the Holocaust. I have members of my family who were in the Holocaust in Auschwitz. To make comparisons like that is completely unacceptable. Acts of anti-Semitism and just discrimination in general should never be politicized or controversial. And to compare it to masks is unbelievable. And to also like say something that's anti-Semitic and yet deny science at the same time, saying how bad masks are, it's absolutely pathetic. Yeah.
I completely agree. It's not, I think having her pull down to like being in Congress is just, it's something that like as America, it kind of we need to ask ourselves, is this the kind of representation that, because it's literally a joke. I think her whole idea of her as a congresswoman is a joke. And I just don't think, she should not be in Congress at all. I don't know how she managed.
She's the worst person to ever be in Congress, and she's worse than Joe McCartney. It's gotten to she's so bad. Like, you do not saving people's lives and mass murdering people. Do not, why the hell would she think that's an okay thing to say? Only an insane person would think that that's okay. And even then, she's more than insane. She's literally should not be allowed anywhere. She's the crazy grandma, crazy aunt that you don't allow to leave the house. Why the hell is she in Congress?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be a statesman or stateswoman, whatever the correct way to say that, in Congress. That is the portrayal. You are supposed to be representing not only the people that your neighbors, your constituents, but also the country, the Constitution, and the rule of law in our country. And the rule of law in our country, we didn't lose 20 million people in World War II fighting Nazism to then have it try to come back and be in charge of this country 75 years later. No, that is not what happened. My grandfathers did not fight in World War II to be desecrated on by some lady who gets angry at TJ Maxx because they don't have a shirt in her size. Why and who then makes somehow these incredibly racist demands and then acts like she has every entitlement to be a racist bigot. No. And hey, Marjorie, if you're listening, I truly hope that you know that no one in this country likes you. You're a racist, crazy lady who somehow thinks that you're the bestest person in the world. Go back to your hole in the ground and kindly leave.
Especially at a time when anti-Semitism is on such a rise in this country.
Absolutely.
And that's a drastic rate.
The sad thing, I was just gonna I definitely agree with what you both said. The sad thing though, Liam, is that there are people who like her. That's the sad part, right? There are people who do support her. And it's so ridiculous. And just goes back to the point that there are so many Republicans that are just so brainwashed, and it's so sad. And yeah, they don't see the reality.
I think we can all agree, and we've said our bit that we had to say about Marjorie Taylor Greene. But I think I want to transition to something that's super significant, especially now. It's been 1 year since George Floyd's death, and I think that's something that we definitely need to talk about and address. How much has we've seen social movements arise from this, but how much has it changed our country fundamentally? Do you think this is going to set a precedent for more radical change in the future? I guess I'll start off with Liam.
I hope that what's come for the past year is that there's actual change and people have realized that we can no longer you can't stand on the sidelines and allow criminal behavior to become a common norm. I mean, of course, there are good people in this world, but the issue is that the good people, especially with the whole 4 years of Trump, you just get so berated and tired of having to always fight for what you think is common good, that no one was doing anything. And I think George Floyd finally woke people up to, we can't stand by anymore. We can't let these insane people who somehow think brutality is an okay thing to do to get away with it anymore. And I feel like there's somewhat of a conversation starting, and I think maybe, hopefully, there's a turn. I mean, I'm a white guy, so I do not know. I am not the best person to be asked this question. But at least I can tell that there seems to be some more talking, definitely a lot more openness and willing to discuss it, while before it was nothing. It was like a brick wall and nothing was happening. So I feel like at least I've been hearing a lot more people talk about it over the past year, talk about police brutality, talk about how we need to change, how we have to be better. I'm not sure if you guys have heard that, but I feel like maybe, possibly, this might be a chance that we can actually start to make some good, positive change.
I mean, I guess we can actually just take a look right now what our president had to say on the anniversary of Floyd's death. So if we can pull up the clip.
Yeah, let's do it.
How you doing? How are you?
I'm doing great. We met with the president and the VP. It was just for the remembrance of what happened to my brother, because this was his day that he was murdered. It was great. He's a genuine guy. They always speak from the heart, and it's a pleasure just to be able to have the chance to meet with him when we have that opportunity too. We're just thankful for what's going on, and we just want this George Floyd Policing Act to be passed in the future.
Is there any message? Could I ask you real quick?
No.
Is there a message you want the American people to know?
Because this is the thing. If you can make federal laws to protect the bird, which is the bald eagle, you can make federal laws to protect people of color.
What about the fact? What is
Absolutely, very well said. I think it does reiterate the importance of having a police reform bill, especially with times like this. And Liam, like you said, I think there are people that are there is started to be more of an awareness of racism, but it's almost undeniable to say that there are events like this where police officers have gotten away with it, right? And we just had no idea. And racism is being recorded. It's not like it wasn't there a year ago before the George Floyd incident.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I think the importance of practicing what you're preaching. If you're saying that we condemn this and we condemn what happened, pass the legislation that he's talking about. That's the best way to say it. It doesn't matter. I feel like as a country, at least I've gotten so tired of people in Congress constantly thinking about thoughts and prayers and sending them out via Twitter, but then we see that the legislation isn't there. It's not passing. So how much do you really care is my thing, because our country has shown up and protested and done so much. And I think it's time that our politicians recognize it and pass the legislation that they're talking about.
I don't care about the amount of prayers given. I want action. That's what it is. It's that simple. Yeah. Yeah, like you said, I agree. Talk is cheap. We need action. 100%.
And even on another note, I think people get so hesitant when we start presenting police reform bill or police reform, defund the police, those terms. I think that we need to have a lot more education around that issue for starters. I just don't think there is enough, period. I know in Massachusetts, we've been able to locally implement legislation like that and been pretty successful. In Massachusetts, we've been able to reallocate up to, I think, $3 million from the Boston Police Department, which is pretty significant. And if we can continue doing things like that, like effective change, I think that shows as a country like this, that his death matters because it does, and we've done something about it.
100%. I mean, the more we can do, the more we can do to educate people, the better. And just awareness, that's a huge thing too. I think that's like we all said earlier, that's the big part of it. Like what we can do, obviously we can't just like end racism like that just by one person, but what we could do is always just be aware and continue remembering events like George Floyd, remembering his name, remembering his story and others' stories.
It shouldn't even have to get to a point where someone has to die for us to care about it. The
Absolutely.
Of like people of color by police in this country is insane.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where like we only recognize it if it's gone to this extent. That's what scares me the most about where our country is today.
It's like police brutality. It's like police involved shootings, especially the ones that what Derek Chauvin clearly murdered George Floyd. It's like I think from the best I can tell from historical context, it feels like a lynching. It feels like a life was stolen from everyone and not allowed to shine. And I very much truly hope that people realize that there is a bigger picture to all of this, and that the bigger picture is that we cannot live in fear. We lived in fear. We have lived in fear for the vast majority of human lifetime. There always is a fear of what's going to be, what's happening. And I think it manifests itself in different ways, depending on whatever way of life, wherever you live, and what your story is. But we all have that innate fear. And I feel like police brutality is the modern day lynchings, which what we are all experiencing is like, we're worried. It's the same thing with mass shootings. We're all worried to hell that we could be going about our daily lives and get killed for no reason other than the fact of who we are. And it shouldn't be that way. It should never be that way. We shouldn't have to be in fear of ourselves. We should be able to live the lives that we want. And we should be able to make sure that no one ever, ever, ever has to deal with any of the horrific injustices that have happened in our country. And I truly hope that people that we can recognize that there are many others that are not there. There are so many others that we don't know about throughout history, especially with police brutality, because it's so engraved in the culture of what's been going on. And I really, really hope that we finally start to make some meaningful change and not just have rhetoric from people who have the ability to change it. I hope that they know that we need action, and we need action now, and it can no longer be a standstill.
There's this well-known Langston Hughes poem called "Let America Be America Again," and it highlights the message of America is the land of freedom and opportunity. But is that really it? Is that really the case when you have people, like you said, Liam, who are walking around every single day in fear? No, it's scary. And in events like this should not happen, and people should not be living in fear. And in the fact to even think that like Brown versus Board of Education only happened in 1954, that only happened like 70 years ago, roughly, is scary. And we need more change. And yeah, we need to do something better.
I completely agree. And I know, Liam, you had mentioned mass shootings and justice in our country. This week, what we've witnessed in California, I think that's something that we should definitely mention. Do you want to? I guess I'll start with Jonah this time. Do you want to say?
Sure. I think when you look at these mass shootings, the biggest thing is what gun are they using, and oftentimes they happen to be an assault rifle. I mean, events like this cannot keep happening. It cannot be mass shooting should not be a norm, right? And I think something that doesn't get enough attention is the psychological effects of owning assault rifle. There's all these videos. I don't know if you guys. Well, if you look at the Parkland shooting, for example, I know Nicholas Cruz, who's the shooter, he posted all these videos right before the shooting, and he was like, "I'm going to kill all these people with the power of my AK-47." Right. I mean, the psychological effects of owning a gun like an assault rifle is scary, in the power of having an assault rifle. No citizen of the United States or no one at all should have access to such a powerful gun. And it's scary that events like these are just keep happening. And I know that Biden has had his gun reform plan and really tracking down and try to stop events like this from happening. But we definitely need change. Yeah, we need assault rifles banned.
And I think if any of your viewers are interested in learning more about our thoughts on assault rifles, we do have previous episodes just discussing that more in depth. But I think what concerns me a lot about what's happening is that whenever we bring this up to Republicans, the argument that they present is that, oh, it's not the gun, it's the person. This specific person is an outlier and they shouldn't have gotten the gun. We have so many mass shootings. This is not an outlier in the country. It's an epidemic. And if mental health of that person is the cause, then why aren't they in support of passing more rigorous checks before a person can obtain a gun, including mental health check-ins?
Absolutely.
Oh God, exactly. They are the most hypocritical people I've ever met in my life. I mean, you have people they identify with guns. They identify with the American flag. These are the same people that and the Confederate flag, and somehow have morphed the Confederate flag into being proud Americans. No, like they somehow think that it's perfectly okay to be 100% nonsensical. It's just so insane that somehow they think that it's okay to have a gun, but it's unmanly, unbecoming of someone to be able to get counseling and to realize that they need help. Yet it's perfectly fine to own a gun because that's solving all your issues. No, it only increases all the issues. And like, if they complain about all if their entire argument is solely based around just to be able to keep guns in power because that's where their political donations come from, and it's there to and also install this fear. They have this whole system in place to be able to allow the people for them to stay in charge by fear mongering, because they've crafted they are excellent in the art and craft of fear mongering to stay in power. That's how Trump retained. That's so he still retains his entire base, is through fear mongering and complete and utter ignorance. They have manipulated people's fear and emotions and insecurities and vulnerabilities to just be able to have all the money, be able to keep themselves in power, and to be able to not be held accountable. And anytime anyone brings up, oh, well, how about you get counseling? How about you get help? How about we help these people? Oh, no, we can't. That's infringing on their rights. But the second there's a mass shooting that happens, they're like, oh, sorry, I think we need to get some counseling. But then they say no.
And I just want to make it clear that we are talking about the politicians in charge and not like conservatives.
Oh, yes.
I think a lot of voters right now have been fed these fear-mongering lies and blinded from the statistics, which speak the truth about what, like Jonah said, the psychological effects of owning a gun.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Exactly.
and I
It's
know
all the people in power, the politicians and the GOP and some Democrats, but mainly Republicans, are the ones that are completely doing this, and they brainwash people into wanting to make this. It's just such an irresponsibly horrible thing that's occurred to our country.
There is something that I do like recently about Biden. Does have his red flag laws plan, which I think will be very effective, and I think it should have gone into play earlier, but than it is now. But I think it's that hopefully we'll see meaningful change, right? Where essentially, for some background, the law says that if there's someone in your family with with a medical issue or whatever, then you can put them on a list where they legally can't get hold of a gun. It's either a family member or a police officer can do this. Now that's good, and hopefully this, first of all, it most likely will decrease the amount of suicides, because majority of suicides involve a firearm.
Right.
However, the issue it brings up is that there are still things like ghost guns, which are guns that are being manufactured without a serial number. And it is a federal law to have a background check. And so if you buy a gun legally, But now, obviously, if you're getting a manufactured ghost gun, you won't need a background check. So you're really getting guns into the hands of people who shouldn't have them. And scary.
Look at what happened in Texas. You can now buy a gun without like a license. You can go up and just get one. That was the reaction to what Biden had talked about. I think that we should just take a moment to see Gavin Newsom's sentiments about what happened in California. I think it's useful things to say.
You know, anywhere USA. It just feels like this happens over and over and over again. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. It wasn't that long ago I was standing out here talking about the tragic loss of children, one in a mother's arms, the Gilroy Festival, just here in this community, down in Southern California, and San Bernardino. Remember a few years prior in Santa Barbara. You know, pick a state. And here we are in the United States of America. We're experiencing something just is not experienced anywhere else in the world. There's a sameness to this. And that numbness, I think, is something we're all feeling. All of us gathered here today, looking at this scene, listening to governors, mayors, chiefs, speaking similar tone and terms, expression of condolences, all the right emotions and perhaps the right words, but it begs the damn question, what the hell is going on in the United States of America? What the hell is wrong with us? And when are we going to come to grips with this?
I think
true.
He could not have said anything better. You could see his genuine concern, and I think it carries through Americans in our country today, students, children in our country today, unfortunately, about the fear of gun violence in our country.
And absolutely. And like we all touched on earlier, he's really reiterating the fact that like this keeps happening over and over and over again, that this is a norm, or it's turning into a norm, and that is just completely unacceptable. And that's when you know, I mean, that there needs change.
I mean, that's my biggest thing. I think what we need to make sure we don't do is internalize it, and I think we've started to do that and normalize this in our society. Then start thinking that these mass shootings, that gun violence.
We can't.
We can't.
I mean, I'm sick and tired of having to go to school and worrying about if I'm going to get shot up. I'm sick and tired of having to worry if I'm going to go get gas and get shot up. I'm sick and tired of having to worry about people I love going food shopping or clothes shopping and getting shot up and killed because people think that this is just normal. It's not. We need to fix this. This is an epidemic of mass proportions that needs to be under control. We had 21 people, children died in 2012, and we didn't do anything about this. We had high schoolers multiple times get shot and killed because of this. We've had college students murdered. We've had moms, grandmothers, grandfathers, brothers, sisters, dads, uncles, aunts, anyone you can imagine has been murdered because of this. It needs to be stopped.
And in our schools, I don't know about like all schools specifically, but in a lot of schools, including my district, we have children literally going through drills about what to do, where to go if there would be a shooter or an intruder in the building. I mean, that is insane. These are children. These are people going to elementary school. They're learning how to do basic things, and now they have to worry about this. It just got to the point that we've normalized it.
We just can't get guns in the arms of people that are mentally insane, right? People like a Nicholas Cruz, for example, and people like the mass shooter in California, they can't have access to a gun, and we really need to track that down.
Mentally insane, though. If you're going through a hard time and you have something mentally that you're struggling with, you shouldn't have a gun. That's for the safety of you and the safety for everyone else in the community.
And the biggest thing also, I think a big thing too, is that like there are many Republicans that are saying that the Democrats want to take away guns, which is not what we're saying, because there's this misinterpretation of the Second Amendment. We're just saying we need gun reform because we don't want events like this to keep happening. Like Gavin Newsom said, we don't want this to be a norm. It's that simple. So yeah.
Exactly. We cannot have to do this rinse and repeat cycle. This is the, what, 68th mass shooting in May? May. That means that there is almost, from what I can recall, this is close to, or over 200 mass shootings, and it's not even June. I mean, what can we do? There's no other country, as Gavin Newsom said, there is no other country that deals with this because they're willing to accept the fact that, hey, we need to actually do some shit. And you can't just keep blaming others and not do the issue. And I think that I think, as I saw, and I think we have the clip up, is Joy Reid did this very powerful speech about it, and I really want us all to hear this. Do we have the clip?
Well, while we get up the quick clip, I just want to say that this is only the 60th recorded mass shooting, right? Because there could be others that we just don't know about too, which is once again scary. And I think it's, yeah, no.
It's not like partisanship of some sort doesn't manifest in other countries, but other countries, like Australia, have been able to transcend and have the lives of people. They valued that more than the political discourse going on. And I think that's something that we have to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we need bipartisanship on issues that should be this simple. Like, it shouldn't even be controversial whether we need gun reform or not when it comes to the normality or just something that's turning into a norm with mass shootings.
Yeah. I think we are actually experiencing some technical difficulties when it comes to the clip itself. But that's totally fine. I think. Oh, wait. Change the clip. We do have the clip, I think.
Much worse. I mean, it seems like Democrats enact laws to change the situation, then it gets repealed by Republicans, and then the cycle begins again. And even when they get shot themselves, like Steve Scalise, they double down. They double down. There's too much money involved here, I think. Follow the money. The lust for money and power is stronger than self-preservation. I mean, what kind of a country is this that we can't feel free to send our children to school? It's become a health crisis at this point, and I think maybe that would be a way to deal with it. Deal with it the way we're dealing with COVID. It's a health crisis. And by the way, one statistic, I always harp on the assault rifles because I think that is really one of the major problems here. The number of massacres increased by 183% after assault weapons ban was lifted.
I mean,
Very true.
We were going to use a clip from The View on this show, but what she had to say was right on the spot.
I mean, I totally forgot it was from The View. I thought it was Joy Reid on MSNBC. So excuse me that my brain doesn't function.
A lot of our senators, so it's not too far away, I guess. But she was right.
She's very true. I think if we mention this as a mental health crisis, and a public health epidemic, it might actually get some traction. I mean, then again, we're going to have to deal with the insane Karens of doing whatever crazy crap they somehow pull up about this and mask wearing. Who knows? They're going to make some weird connection because they burned their pie in the oven the night before and they need to complain about and vent and make other people feel their pain because that's how they feel. They somehow make themselves feel better. I don't know. They're crazy nut jobs, and I still don't know how this is happening.
Yeah,
but she was right to say that it is a mental health crisis. I mean, just like we can't keep getting guns in the arms of these people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I work with Martha at Boston, and one of the biggest things that we prioritize there is the mental health aspect of gun violence, because you honestly can't. You need to have a holistic approach when doing it, and you honestly can't avoid it in any kind of legislation without addressing mental health first. And on that note of mental health and the pressures that school shootings and things like that, there's also so many additional pressures this year on high school students and university students of just the pandemic. So I guess I'm just going to ask out to everyone here, just what is the next school year going to look like? Because for us, it's kind of up in the air. Obviously, things have been getting better. And thanks to legislation we've been able to pass and getting, I guess, a better grip on the vaccines and COVID. But it's still been pretty stressful, if that's an understatement. But Jonah?
Yeah, sure. I'll start off. I mean, first of all, I'm not a doctor. Surprising, I know, but I think it's tough to say, because I mean we're so thankful and for the vaccination numbers that are coming, and I know Ohio had some huge spike in vaccinations, which is awesome, and it begs the question: will we have masks next year or not? I think my guess would be just because based on what my school is doing. Well, we still don't know entirely what next year will look like, but I think we've begun ever since that we don't have to wear masks now outside. We used to have all desks used to be 6 feet apart. Now they're a little more casual about that. So I think we'll still see. Obviously, we're all wearing masks indoors, but we'll have to see what the summer will look like and what the fall will look like too. But I'm definitely very curious, and I'm also interested what you think, Liam, what colleges will look like, because I know that there's all these colleges now that are saying you have to be vaccinated to come on campus next year. So.
Yes, there is very much a very different, there's a similar but very different tone in that aspect of how colleges are going to go back, because there are some colleges that are requiring vaccinations, yet there are others that are strongly advising it, and then there are others that are not advising it and not saying anything. So there's this really strange take on what college is going to look like in this next school year. I know a lot of my friends are probably still going to be wearing masks inside. I still wear a mask when I go shopping or I go indoors, or if I have to be near a group of people just to be safe. It's also a habit now that I kind of like having. Is the fact is that I don't like getting sick. So I mean, I'm probably going to continue wearing a mask if I have to be near a lot of people, because why not? I want less sick, less me feeling like horribleness. But I do feel like that there is going to be a lot of confusion unless it's mandated by the CDC that we all need to get vaccinations going back to school. I don't know why it isn't, because it just makes sense, and it would be easier if everyone got vaccinated, or whoever could, just because then we'd all be safer. There'd be less of it, less risk of transmission, and we could actually fully return to normal and not even have to wear masks anymore indoors, nor have to worry about COVID anymore. I think it's kind of no brainer in that sense. I want to hear what you have to say, Artie, because I know that you're the one that's solely based and going to be in high school, but you also go to a lot of a lot of swim meets, and I want to hear what's going on there with all the sports.
So sports-wise, at least in Massachusetts, if you're a student and you're outside, you don't need to wear a mask, period, whether that be for recreational activity or not. So they've lifted that on sports. Obviously, even during when COVID was a lot worse than it is now, I was not wearing a mask in the pool, surprise. We had to wear a mask when we were on the deck, and we take it off. It was considered a low-risk sport, so for the most part, we were fine. But I think what it'll be interesting to see next year is transitioning some of, like, I guess, the functions that we lost in COVID. Like, we've had such a big part of our school year be virtual that I think, like, are we going to abandon that format?
Store policy.
Sorry.
I don't know what that was.
Are we going to abandon that completely, or are we going to, integrate that back in some way because we found it useful?
Yeah, I think there's some advantage. Obviously, it's been a tough year for a lot of people. Also, in terms of the athletics thing, I play for my school's lacrosse team, and for some reason they just want, for safety reasons, even though with the new mandate they had us wear masks under our helmets, which is a little weird, kind of brutal to run. But I think something that obviously there's a lot of bad that's come through this year, but some good things is kind of, I mean, first of all, I was talking to my friend about like meeting with teachers, for example, after school. I mean, the power of Zoom now too, it's becoming more of a norm, and how you can casually, like, the other day I met with my English teacher, and it was just like, hey, I'll just hop on the Zoom after school. And so I think that's kind of cool, and I think it's interesting to see the uses of technology and how that will play a part in next year.
I think we might have just lost snow days for good, and that
Yeah,
really,
absolutely. Yeah,
but you know,
that's one of the losses. Sorry.
yeah, that's true. And I on this show we always like to end in like a fun note or a funny note, and for us that's GOP clownery. So I guess, or just Karen clownery in this case. Liam,
I mean, we can't. I mean, if it's weird, but also it's kind of funny because you get to see natural selection happening in real time. And who doesn't love watching a live science experiment? So if we could tee up, I think what I have to admit is probably one of the funniest videos that I've ever seen in my life.
This is Liam's
Control, do
favorite
we have
topic.
that?
If you haven't,
this is Liam's favorite.
I
the only
literally
reason why he
have
shows up.
5 neighbors that are Karens. It's true. My whole ideal living in rural Maine, all my neighbors are nosy Karens who love being in other people's business. So it's nice to see them have the world balancing it itself out somewhere. So Control, can we see what's happening with whatever fun video that we're gonna have?
Sure.
And yeah, once again, if you haven't realized, this is the only reason why Liam shows up to stuff like this, so he can have an opportunity to talk about Karen.
Oh, not like y'all do this the same way too.
He threw me to the ground! My name is Terry Ann Blues! I'm the manager of the fucking airport here!
That's not
Who saw him choking? Who saw him choke me to the ground? Who saw me?
I saw you run through the door when you weren't supposed to,
He
and then I saw him push you out again.
You deserve it!
I'm pretty sure you're mistaken.
In a dress!
Boo-hoo. Boo-hoo.
Boo-hoo! You fuck off!
Not helping.
Excuse me?
I want the manager of the airport here!
I don't even think we have to say anything about that. I think we can just end it there. Yeah.
I'm crying.
I think Liam's reaction says everything.
She's almost this close to asking for Mr. LaGuardia himself. I swear. Oh my. Oh.
Oh my God.
I'm at the manager and I want him now.
Well, guys, this is like, if y'all ever talk to Liam, he will bring up the main Karens. Okay, the Karens from rural Maine. He will tell you all about them.
I have so many stories. I will have to get into it next week. At least
we'll
one.
have a whole...
I'm gonna share like one story a week about the insanity of dealing with my insane nosy neighbors. I can do a quick little anecdote of it's going to be short. We have a local Karen that her husband works for a construction company. Somehow they think it's okay to put up a speed limit sign on one of the local roads, even though the sign is not legal. They still have it up. And they try to enforce it, yet nobody listens. And all they do is scream at you if you're going too slow, but they don't scream at you if you're going too fast. They seem to have forgotten how, speed and science work.
Oh my God.
Yes, if you do have one, tell us.
I think that's a good
What is your favorite Karen story, Artie? Because I bet you've had to deal with some of the moms and swim team.
The sign thing is prevalent in where I live, at least suburban Massachusetts as well. But it's a lot of just like parents trying to get their kids into like elite colleges, and it's I guess a lot like my kid deserves to like go to the state competition even though he's like 3 seconds off qualifying, and it happens. They go and they take other kids out of places and they move their kids up, and I think they just think that they're entitled to like having certain things, they deserve certain things, which they don't. But
I do have my friend's mom was in New Hampshire a little bit ago, like I think a few months ago, and she was at the grocery store and she was wearing a mask, and someone goes up to her and goes, "Why are you wearing a mask?" And she explains, "Oh, you haven't realized it's a global pandemic, whatever." And she goes, "Oh, you must have voted for Joe Biden." Just walked away. It's like, oh my god, so epic.
I think this is a good note to end on. Please, on Twitter, let us know your favorite Terrance story. We would love to figure it out.
Yeah, put it in the comments.
We'll even make we'll make a hashtag of your crazy Karen story. We'll send it out on all of the Meidas Twitter accounts, and we'll hopefully be able to let's see if we can get that trending. That'll be fun.
And if you're interested,
say Karen's story.
If you're interested in a 24-hour live of just Liam telling Karen stories, we'll try to make that happen.
I don't think I can handle that. I can handle once a week. After a while, they drive me insane. I mean, they are insane people who are entitled, who think that they're entitled and demigods. I mean.
And on that note, I just want to say.
Good segue.
Thank all of our viewers who watched this live stream for hopping on. If you're interested in joining Meidas, whether that be Meidas Varsity Blue or Meidas University, please contact us so we can speak with you. If you're interested in the rundown, contact us about that as well. And yeah, do you guys have anything to mention?
Oh yeah, please follow us, like and share if you enjoyed it. And yeah.
And thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.